Mikey P, Mike Probosi in the Money Media Players podcast. Little adjustment for these Keeneland shows because of weather. So this was to be Keeneland Saturday, and that's a huge day, but it got moved to Tuesday, April the 8th. Welcome in, Michael Domable. We were supposed to record earlier this week, but the weather kind of changed everything.
Yeah, historic levels of rain in the Lexington area. Well, it will provide us with 8 straight days of Keeneland racing, which nothing says springtime like Keeneland racing. And a little grade 1 action on a Tuesday makes me feel like it's Royal Ascot week. But it'll be a cool thing to have a little bit to look forward to versus everything getting caught up in the whirlwind of today's racing. So try to look on the positives for having this be on Tuesday.
Yeah, and we're recording this now on Saturday for this Tuesday card. And it's all the same horses, the same draw, the same big graded stakes card that was to be for Saturday, April 5th. Now it is April the 8th on Tuesday. Plenty of rain. We're going to do late pick 5. Hopefully things have dried up by then. We only have 1 turf race in this sequence, so that'll certainly help us. We're definitely going to get 4 dirt races anyway for Tuesday, Michael. And we're going to start in race number 7. Grade 3, Commonwealth, 7 furlongs. It's 4 and up. It's Olders sprinting. I thought a decently wide open race. No real standout.
Yeah, I think the horse to beat is Montalcino, the number 2 for Cherie DeVoe. He could be kind of the proverbial speed of the speed. I've got him clear fastest on the pace figures that I look at. And I think he's up to the task for this slight move up the class ladder. I definitely prefer him to the number 11, What You're Talking About, who's kind of the other horse on the come, the other horse that's kind of has been rattling through their conditions. I just think the number 11 is going to be an underlay with IRAD, and he's not really been campaigned the way that the top horses in Wesley Ward barn have been, running at Finger Lakes and primarily in New York bred and restricted and state bred company. Now this is a big step up in class to try an open grade 3. But I actually really like the number 3 Epic Ride in this spot. And I'll make him my top pick. Some might dismiss him as kind of a synthetic specialist, but I actually think he's equally capable on dirt. If you kind of run through his tries on dirt, he ran on the Bluegrass last year, which is probably a bit too far for him. I think he's better as a sprinter, but he actually finished ahead of 2/3 of the Triple Crown winners in that race. So even going a route of ground is probably too far for him. He still ran really well over the dirt. I'm willing to draw a line through the Derby. And then I thought his Perryville, which is a grade 3 over this course and distance last year, was solid. I mean, he finished right with Bookham Dano and Knightsbridge, who would be easily the favorites in this spot. And he came back this year and he's run a couple solid races on the synthetic just to prove that he's still the same horse. So I really like Epic Ride in this spot, and it'll make him my top pick. A couple backups would be Hoist the Gold. He might not be the same horse necessarily at 7. And he doesn't look like he has the same early zip, the number 6. And then I probably would also use Extra Anejo underneath or as a backup. The number 10. He debuted pretty peerlessly over this course and distance at Keeneland. And he's kind of always been around favoritism, and today might be the day you actually get a decent price on him. But I don't think he'll ultimately end up going off the 8-1. And then one last one I'll throw in kind of as a goofy long shot is the number 1 Best Actor. And my thought here is he's been running for Brad Cox all the way up until the trainer switched to Ed Moger. And if the name on the program still said Brad Cox, I bet he would be 6-1 in this spot. But because the trainer changed, he's probably going to be dismissed at double digits, 15-1. And he is only about a year removed from being odds on in a grade 3. So I wouldn't want to be completely knocked out of that horse, especially because I think he's not going to get bet for kind of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, he's going to be a price for sure. And he's a turn back. So there's plenty of speed for him to chase in here. It's interesting that you like Epic Ride. I could see it, but I'm just not quite sure what sort of trip he gets. I do think maybe he shows some speed over the synthetic races and tends to be off of it going on the dirt. Now, that just could be circumstance. That just could be the company he's keeping necessarily. So I get him. I just don't know that I necessarily want him in this race. I was curious what you thought of Hoist the Gold. He certainly has some class. He has some big races, and he does have a win over this racetrack. He certainly has raced very well here. I do think his best shot does probably beat these horses. He raced well in the Met Mile. He crushed the Cigar Mile. I know that was sort of a biased track that day, but those are big races. He's capable of big figures, and I do think that he's worth the use. One horse you didn't mention, it shows you how wide open this race is the 8, Hear Me Song. Another one that's done well over this racetrack, has been in similar spots, has some big figures depending on circumstances and on the day. Another one, I'm not sure what kind of trip he gets, but I do think, he did win this race last year. So he's capable, and he's won this race at a price before. He could be from off the pace. So he's another one I think that you could certainly use in this race.
Yeah, I think my opinion of this race is probably a little different than yours. I kind of think this is going to represent a little bit of a changing of the guard in this division. You've got Hoist the Gold and Hear My Song, who are 7-year-olds, but I do think Montalcino and Epic Ride would be my 2As, newly turned 4-year-olds. They might be on the upswing and be able to nab this one and go on to maybe even higher graded stakes company moving forward throughout the year.
Yeah, I could definitely see the 2 there, and certainly would be a use for me in this race. Well, let's go on to race number 8, and that is the Grade 1 Madison. Now, we have the older girls here heading for 7 furlongs, and this is always a spot that a lot of horses point to. I was going to go with Emery as my top pick. Loves the racetrack. I wasn't crazy about the race at Gulfstream necessarily, but she sort of fires the same shot every time. She's speedy. I do think that this Keeneland surface is an advantage for her. So she definitely moves up here. I'm going to definitely use her as an A. Scylla's obvious. She would be probably more as a B for me, but she has faced the best ones, right? She's been in the Breeders' Cup, in the Ballerina, in these Grade 1 spots against the Adair Manors, the Societies. Those are tough horses. None of those are in this race. So she will, probably be right there. Just on company alone, I do think that this is a step down, even though it is a Grade 1 race. These are kind of a different level of Grade 1 horses. So that one's hard to get off the ticket. And then Justique, I think, is another one that plays well. Since she's gone to Cherie, she's raced extremely well, especially going short on the dirt. That's probably what she's wanted to do all along. And Jose Ortiz has ridden her very well. I thought, that race at Oaklawn, she was just loaded at the top of the stretch. As soon as she got room, she exploded and was able to win nicely there. So she's another one I think on the come. I don't think the 7 furlongs will hurt her. So I would probably be 2-7 on the A side, maybe a little 6 in there on the B side. What say you?
Yeah, I'm with you on Emery. Number 2, I had her as my top pick as well. I think she didn't get the right ride last time, kind of a little bit passive, and allowed Mystic Lake, who's back in this spot, the number 8, to get the jump on her. And she just never really was set down in a way that gave her best chance to win. I do think she'll turn the tables on Mystic Lake, the number 8, who I would probably relegate to a backup, but she's still super dangerous. She could be the speed, the number 8. And when Safi gets these horses going the right direction, they normally keep ascending in their speed figures. So she's dangerous, but I'm gonna play it that Emery's gonna turn the tables on her. I like Scylla probably a little bit more than you did. I think like you said, kind of the horses she was losing to last year would be odds on in this field. I think the only question mark, and the reason I wouldn't take her on top, is the layoff and the short price. You never know sometimes with these filly and mares when they come back after a break, if they still have the same vigor. And so I would probably still use her as an A just because I have some opinions in later sequences that I want to link up. The horse I would use as a backup is who I think is who I could use as a closer would be actually My Main Squeeze, the number 4 versus I kind of want to play against Justique. And I think My Main Squeeze is just going to get lost in the shuffle, lost in the wagering. And there's really no reason that she couldn't jump up as a newly turned 4-year-old and compete with this group. She, won a grade 2, won a grade 3 last year, loves the 7 furlong distance. And like I said, I think she could get lost in the wagering a little bit. So for me, it would be 2 6 as A's, 4 8 as backups, trying to get through this second leg.
Yeah, you mentioned the 4. She certainly has some class to her also. I mean, look, Torpedo Anna, Ways and Means, has faced the top ones there, always racing in graded races. So, and as a closer, finished second to Emery last time over this track in the fall there. So there's lots to like there. Definitely one to add. I'm not sure. I guess if things go her way, she could win it, but she could certainly hit the try at a price for sure. Definitely one worth looking at in that Grade 1 Madison on Tuesday. Let's go to race 9, the Shakertown. It's supposed to be 5.5 on the grass here, Michael. Now, we'll get your thoughts for turf. We'll get your thoughts for if they should come off. As a little disclaimer, PTF had the guys from Sport of Kings Racing, had Dale Romans and had Michael Karras there, who are involved with Sport of Kings and involved with Coppola, who has been very good the last couple starts at Gulfstream. That one ships in here and has yet to really do well over this Keeneland turf. They also did mention that he would run if they would come off. Michael, what are your thoughts on Coppola and maybe just different scenarios when it comes to this Shakertown?
Yeah, I think it's good that Connections plan to run Coppola on the dirt because I definitely think his chances are much better if this race comes off. I don't really like him as much if this race stayed on the grass, even though he does have an abundance of speed, just because he really has underperformed compared to his surrounding races when running on the Keeneland turf. I think you mentioned it in the intro a little bit. If it does stay on turf, I think the number 1 Run Carson is interesting to me as kind of a horse that can keep improving off of that and make that step up as a newly turned 4-year-old, first off the bench for Kelsey Danner. And then the horse I would probably make my top pick on turf would be the number 4 Rogue Lightning, knowing that this horse is coming over from Europe, can handle some given the ground, which there undoubtedly would be if this race is run over the grass, given the amount of rain they've received over the past couple weeks or over the past couple of days, and has handled kind of all sorts of sprint distances in Europe from 5 furlongs up to 1,200 meters, which is around 6 furlongs as well. So I like the jockey named on him, Flavian Pratt. So I think he would be my top pick on the turf, but I'm kind of thinking it's going to come off just because of the historic levels of rain that they received. And in that case, I think the number 5 Valentine Candy is going to be super tough if this race is switched over to dirt. It almost feels like the Connections entered this horse in this race thinking it might come off. Although he is a Justify, so there, I guess, there's a little bit of turf pedigree, but I think his chances would be pretty solid if this race is run on the main track. And then I think Coppola would be the other one, knowing that he's been capable over the dirt track before. Those would be my 2 for the dirt.
Yeah, I agree on your dirt numbers, and I do think that this would be scratched down because there's a lot of horses that are just strictly turf oriented. Iman actually is in here. He's entered at Gulfstream, I believe, today also. So that one's another one. I would imagine that they might stay home with that one because of the weather. I was on the 4 also if for the turf Rogue Lightning. If you look back to last year, this horse has faced some really nice horses, even as back as far as 23 with Highfield Princess. Race Starlust last year came over to win the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Big Evs is another Breeders' Cup winner. So lots of class there in this horse's PPs, and nice win last time. Ships over here. You mentioned the success. You have on soft ground. You have Pratt. There's so much to like there with the 4 if they should stay on. I do think Our Shot is also worth a use. plenty of success over the Keeneland course. Has just been okay with some give in the ground, but this horse is very speedy, very capable of big numbers, and that would be one I could see. Run Carson, you mentioned that one, a definite use also, just on the improve. Kelsey Danner Barn was exceptional at Turfway. Really, all the horses she sends out are very live. So I do think that one plays pretty well. I looked at a price in the 11 Think Big. Look at those 2 turf races, very sharp, including the one on December 7th with Given the Ground there at Fairgrounds. 88 buyer there. Then, on February 7th, a 94 there at Fairgrounds. I think Ben Curtis is riding extremely well. I do think he could be one of the ones that maybe is a jockey that can maybe get on that upper level here. It's just the way he's riding. He gives horses chances. He wins with big prices. He can get them out of the gate. There's things to like about it. So, and I think that if it would stay on dirt, also this horse might rate a chance. It has some back dirt lines, especially if a lot of them come out of here. This horse is interesting and is going to be a price either way. So pretty wide open. I agree on the 4. I think 1, 2, 11. And we mentioned numbers for dirt. So lots of different ways you can go. We'll just see who's in that race on Tuesday for the Shakertown. Let's jump to the big one, Grade 1 Bluegrass Stakes. And very wide open race, Michael. I'm curious to see how you separate. There seems to be 5 horses that can win this.
Yeah, should be a really fun race. I actually can make a cogent case for 6 of the 7 runners. As much as I love the Virginia Derby, I don't think Rendered Judgment is beating this field. But I'll start by saying that I think the number 6, Chancer McPatrick, is the most likely winner. But I also think he's going to be a clear favorite. The narrative behind this horse is just so readily apparent. You've got Chad, you've got Flavian, you've got a dual Grade 1 winner at 2, second off the bench. So the price won't be there to compensate the fact that I think he's probably only about maybe 20% to win this race. So of the shorter prices on the morning line, I actually like the number 4, Owen Almighty, the best. Because I'm not entirely sold that the prevailing narrative around him is correct. So ever since he finished second to John Hancock in the Sam F. Davis, it's been, Brian Lynch wants to turn him back in distance. He's not going to compete at the highest level with these 3-year-old routers. But then he shows up in the Tampa Bay Derby, runs that field off its feet. I know it was kind of a candy trip on the front end, but I don't think he's getting the credit he deserves for that win. Beating that field by a clear 3.5 lengths, a field that included Chancer McPatrick and Hill Road. And now, he shows up here, and I can see him going off as the 4th or 5th choice in this race. I can definitely see money going to East Avenue and River Thames and Chancer McPatrick. And I've heard some cases on Burnham Square. And if he goes off in that 5-1 to 6-1 range, I think that's a great bet. And I think his pedigree, even though he's a Speightstown has produced plenty of routers, and his dam was Grade 2 place going long. So I think Owen Almighty should be I give him about 15 to 20% chance. So not that far off of Chancer McPatrick, but I think he's going to be 4 to 5 times the price.
What kind of trip do you think he gets?
That's a good question, because I think he's going to need to sit, because I think he's not going to get the walk on the front end that he got in the Tampa Bay Derby. I think River Thames has got to go from the rail, and I actually think that East Avenue is going to send away. So I could see him getting that trip right off the speed, sitting 3rd. If you go back to his debut and his first stakes win, he was able to sit 3rd a little bit. So I think that's kind of the trip I envision for him is sitting 3rd behind the 1 and the 5.
So what's your thoughts on East Avenue? Is he a total fade here? I know he's getting back to his beloved Keeneland. He's getting blinkers. They're going to get the front here. Do you think he just folds up again, or does he get brave? I know you like Chancer, but is there a world where you think that this horse maybe gets back to himself here and kind of, shows that talent that he did it to?
I definitely think it's a possibility, but my problem with that is that it's just not going to be, you're not going to be compensated with the odds you need to take that gamble, right? If I wanted to draw a line through a horse's race with no excuse, I would want to have a horse that's 6 to 8 to 1 in order to do that. I think he's going to go off around 3-1 to 7-2, and I just don't think that's. If there's a 50% chance he doesn't show up and a 50% chance he shows up, he's not going to win that even every time he shows up. So I just don't think the odds are going to be there. I would use him as a C because if I get the other 4 opinions home, I don't want him to knock me out of the pick 5. But he's not going to be on the top of my tickets any inter race bets.
Mm-hmm. You didn't mention much about the horses coming from Florida. No River Thames for you at all. Do you just think maybe this is a little too far for him? And any thoughts on Burnham Square? A lot of people do like him. Lots of buzz around him, given the fact that his lead up to the Fountain of Youth, he was favored versus those horses and sort of made that run on the turn and then kind of faded back and was even late. What's your thoughts on the Floridas?
Yeah, I think both of them, I kind of have similar thoughts as to East Avenue, where I just don't think their chances are going to be commensurate with what their odds are. I think River Thames probably doesn't want to go this far, being McLean's music, and you could see he was getting a little bit tired at the end of the Fountain of Youth, and now he has to go an extra half furlong. He's probably going to get pace pressure from East Avenue. Burnham Square is another one where I just couldn't find the excuse for the Fountain of Youth, and I don't want to just be drawing lines to races when I can't find excuses. You know, the horse I actually do want to use on level with Owen Almighty is the number 7 Admiral Dennis, and I know he looks a little bit slow on paper, but if you think about the fact that his races that he was winning were kind of the figure was kind of capped by the fact that they were slow paces. You can't necessarily get a big figure when the paces are that slow early. Mm-hmm. And then the Rebel, he broke miserably. And so I know it was a fast pace, but that on Rebel Day, speed was holding pretty well. And if you look around where the horses he finished around in that race, Tistastic won the Louisiana Derby. Publisher, second in the Arkansas Derby. Sandman won the Arkansas Derby. So that is proving to be a key race for horses that were in that 3rd through 6th finishing position. Mm-hmm. And Brad Cox has an army of horses, and this is the one he chooses to send to the Grade 1 Bluegrass, or the Grade 1 Bluegrass. I think it's interesting. I think if East Avenue, River Thames, and Owen Almighty do duke it out on the front end, Admiral Dennis is going to be closing late, and it's just a matter of can he outclose Chancer McPatrick? Probably, that's the question. But he's going to be 10 times the price of Chancer McPatrick. And I do like the rider switch from Flo to Saez on a horse that kind of needs that encouragement to get going. Saez is the best on those type of horses. So 4-7 for me in this race will be the A's for sure.
Yeah, it'll definitely blow the board up if he would win this race, because he's probably going to be the longest shot on the board. And it's interesting that you do rate him a chance. I'm thinking the closers are going to have their day here. There's just so much speed with the one. East Avenue is going to go. I mean, I think that it's interesting. You think Owen Almighty needs to sit, but my thing is he's never really done that too much, and especially this year so far. Now, he's maybe fell into some of those leading spots, but I do think that he wants to fight for it. He wants to go. He's a nice horse, and I'd be curious to see what kind of trip. He's sort of the key to the race, right? Because if the 1 and 5 go and the 4 kind of gets in the middle of them, things could get very hot, and that's going to set it up for your Chancer McPatrick. So I think I like the best in here. It's a sort of a now or never for him, right? Going along. I do think if he races well here, that they'll keep him on this trail. If not, he's going back to shorter, and he's going to be a one-turn type horse for probably the rest of the year. A lot of people like Burnham Square. I just think that maybe this race shapes much better for him. He's going to drop out. He's going to make his run. That might be better. He might have been just a little too close last time. I do think, though, that Sovereignty ran by him like he was standing still. So he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to do much better than he did last time. So I think we see it a little different. I think that, it's going to be closers, definitely wide open and very deep version of the Bluegrass. And it shows up on a Tuesday this week, given the weather at Keeneland. Let's go to the last race. And this is a 7 furlong 1X here. Michael, how are we going to get paid?
Yeah, I think I normally try to find ways around favorites, but I do think the number 1 Seaport Lane is a pretty nice colt, and I would be pretty happy if I got my ticket alive to him to close this thing out. I mean, you don't often see trainers debut horses in allowance company, but that's exactly what Cherie DeVoe was forced to do with Seaport Lane. I guess probably a maiden race didn't come up at the fairground, so why not just go straight to the allowance ranks, and got that win and is still eligible for the non-winners of one despite winning at that level at the fairgrounds back in January. And the rail might push some people off, but I have him as the clear speed in this race. And so I know it's not sexy to give out probably a horse that's going to be close to even money to close out the pick five, but I just think he's where you can really narrow in on an otherwise really competitive sequence. I'd have some other backups probably to get home with like some of the pretty lucrative opinions I have earlier in the card. Like if I got Admiral Evans or Owen Almighty Hone, I'd want to be alive to a couple more. Like the number 3 Pentathlon, the number 6 Reynolds Channel, even the number 5 Run Jalen Run, I could make a case for. And then I guess the number 2 Risk It is interesting to me, especially coming off that bullet work at Keeneland last out. Winchell, Flavian, Asmussen, Gunrunner Colt. So he could be dangerous as well, but I would probably have it separated as Seaport Lane as the A, and then I would have all the way down to the C line for the 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I agree on the 1. He's pretty obvious, right? It's hard to look past a horse that just basically skips a grade and skips a level, shows up in a race and was bet sub 2-1 there and won like at 91 Beyer. That was back in January though. So it's been a minute. The fact that they, took a little while to get this horse back going is the only concern. And the rail going 7 in Keeneland is not ideal necessarily. But hard to leave that one off. I agree on the 2 Risk It. That was the other one that I had in here. Now this horse was a little bit exposed. I mean, 1 for 13 lifetime, has some big races. If you look back to November last year, Churchill, missed a head to Ban for Life there with a 90 Beyer. That race probably would be right there in this spot. Has been off the pace recently at Oaklawn, at Fairgrounds. Now, gets here for Keeneland and, gets Pratt, has ridden this horse to its best race so far. So that was one thing that I did like. I was going to try to be shorter here because it's a tough card. I mean, there's lots of different spready ways you can go early. So I probably would be like you and shrink down late and be the 1 and the 2 in the last. Well, Michael, this is such an odd thing to have this sort of racing on a Tuesday afternoon, but the weather has dictated as such. I'm sure it's going to be must-see TV, the eyes of the racing world on Keeneland for Tuesday.
Yeah, it should be a good wrap up to an elongated weekend, so to speak, of Derby prep races. And coming out of the Bluegrass, the picture for the Kentucky Derby will be a lot clearer with results in the UAE Derby, the Wood Memorial, the Santa Anita Derby, and then the Bluegrass as we turn our attention towards the first Saturday in May.
Absolutely. And we're going to have you on. I think we have some more Keeneland coming up here. We're going to have to be doing these Friday and Saturday shows. Would love to get you back, and always very much appreciate your thoughts. You going to jump in on any of the Twin Spires contest?
I've got double qualified for the one on this card. So some of my opinions that I doled out today, I'm sure will be played through the windows in that contest. That's for sure.
Well, we wish you the best of luck in that. We thank Keeneland for their continued sponsorship. And, everybody jump in on a Tuesday, Keeneland. This is a special kind of thing you'll probably never see again. We'll see you guys later this week for more Keeneland, and talk to you soon.